When you talk about insurance companies, you come into financing of healthcare. How do you finance? So if you look at now, India is still a young nation with a median age of around 27 years. But if you look at the number of people which are growing above age 60, we expect around 140 million people are going to be there by 2020 about. So you're going to have a lot of senior citizens which are there which are going to require healthcare. You have 300 million people who are supposed to be below poverty line. It was good to read some time back that the number is coming down. More than 80% of the healthcare expenses are funded out of pocket. And it is a challenge how this expenditure can be channeled through health insurance as a viable mechanism to finance healthcare expenditures. Health insurance, if you see from 2003-04, it was rupees 9 billion, which has grown to 110 billion. So in terms of amount, exponential growth has been seen. But if you look in terms of the percentage of coverage, less than 5% of the population is covered under private purchase of health insurance. You have got ESIS, you have got CGHS, you have got captive schemes of railways, you have got captive schemes of banks or public sector units like SAIL, etc. Everything put together, you could still have 9 to 10% of the population which have got some type of scheme which actually finances healthcare. You must be knowing about an initiative about the government has taken about the Rashtriya Swasthya Bima scheme. How it's going to go forward or what actually would be the final achievements. But still, it's good to know at least the scalability is there. You are talking about 23 million families which have been covered, 60 million persons covered under RSBY in 26 states and 378 districts in the country. But when you come to planning of healthcare financing, I think the basics are something which at many forums we try to talk about. Even somebody from Planning Commission was once were asked that what kind of a healthcare financing and delivery system are you looking at for the country? If you look at the major systems which are being defined by health economics, it would be public financing and private delivery, public financing and public delivery, private financing and private delivery, or private financing and public delivery. Or there could be actually a hybrid of all this depending upon at which segment what is to be applied. Now, if you look at the segment of the population, if you're talking about access of healthcare to the entire population, if you just segment the population into different sections, you have the BPL who cannot afford private health insurance and who may or may not be. I would like to look at them into two. One is people who can afford insurance, and second is people who can be commercially be insurable. As far as an insurance company, it's like a person who is already having cancer, and an insurance company commercially cannot insure him. So you have these two parameters. One is he can afford it. Second is whether his commercially be insurance. Now you could segment the population into BPL who cannot afford health insurance, private health insurance, or who may or may not be insurable under commercial health insurance. You have a section of above poverty line who can afford private health insurance and who are insurable under commercial health insurance. Then you have APL who cannot afford private health insurance but who are insurable under commercial health insurance. They may not qualify as below poverty line, but commercial insurance for those, for example, senior citizens. That's an age group where the premiums are very high. The person may not qualify to be a below poverty line, but he may not afford to purchase insurance at that cost because the spread of risk is not there. And again, you have APL who may or may not afford private health insurance but who are not insurable under commercial health insurance. And this also includes senior citizens. Now for the bottom, the government has taken an initiative where you talk about RSBY. It's being extended, scalability is there, we could watch and see. We were just discussing how this affects. There are certain states where RSBY, the insurers are quoting 310 rupees or 350 rupees when your enrollment charges are just 100 rupees. There are states like Kerala where it is starting at 840 rupees or 850 rupees for the same coverage we are talking about. So what here is, certain states there is ignorance of the scheme. The more people understand the scheme, then you are going to know what those results of the scheme are. Second portion which I talked about, who can afford and who are commercially insurance, they need to go in for private health insurance. Now the rest of the two segments, who cannot afford it or who cannot be covered commercially, where do they go? Now this is where maybe if we look at across something which comes from the Obama health reforms in US, where they talk about something called health insurance exchanges. It's not a bad idea where the state talks about insurance companies having a product which is available, priced accordingly on risk-based, and it's available for this section of people where you talk about guaranteed insurability. But for those who cannot afford it, it needs to be priced. It should be subsidized. And for those who are not commercially insurance, the insurance companies have to be protected by means of, or it's a simple thing, the government picks up the risk. They collect premiums also wherever possible, picks up the risk also, they carry the risk, and this could be very well carried. These points have been raised many times. You have service tax which is being collected on health insurance policies. Why don't you let the insurance companies manage those accounts themselves? Let this particular types of health insurance or accounts be managed by the insurance companies themselves, and you fund it out of the service tax which is being collected on health insurance policies. Now, you could have a single scheme or different types of schemes and price it adequately. This exchange can be administered by a single forum centrally, and accounts can be individually maintained by insurers and shared with the regulator. The service tax component, as I said, would be used to fund this exchange. Now, there are certain things which are prerequisites for insurance. One is, which every time it comes up, bringing uniformity and regulations in the healthcare sector. No insurance are able to price their products properly because there is a wide variations in the healthcare sector, the pricing, etc. Then, as you were saying, something out of the box, we would always thought that we always read that there's a lot of infrastructure available in rural areas. There's no doctors or no medicines available. Can this be given to corporate bodies to run? Can you corporatize such type of government infrastructure where it is? Can you give privatize, not privatize, give it to corporate bodies to run? Let below poverty line people have free treatment or whatever it, and let this also be run on private, chargeable basis, and let tax benefit be given to such type of corporate bodies who are undertaking to go into these rural areas or go to the interiors and run such type of institutes. For all government schemes, you need to look at fixed rates, because rates are something which is going to decide your pricing. To increase coverage, government has to make it mandatory. That is, if the government decides insurance is one way of financing healthcare, a person has to be, an individual has to be a member of one of this. He has to be either in the below poverty line, he has to be covered there. He has to purchase a plan of a minimum sum insured. If he doesn't purchase that plan, or else he has to be a member of the health insurance exchange. For not meeting any of the above, the person may not be eligible for government subsidy, including or ration card or subsidized fuel or cooking gas or driving licenses, passport. He needs to show that. Of course, this is again, it has been tried to be implemented in some countries, and it has been challenged also in those countries where people have gone to this that how can you make it compulsory? But that's one way of actually increasing care. I think I'll leave it further for discussions. Thank you.